You and I are moving into the final arc of our Mesopotamia series, the neo-Babylonian period. After Assyria's fall, Babylon returns, but not as the old legal network or the Assyrian war machine. This time it is a spectacle of power, monumental architecture, revived identity, and a city that wants the world to look at it. The question is not only how Babylon rules, but how it persuades the world that it is the center again. Begin with the setting. Assyria collapses under pressure from a coalition of enemies, and the political map opens. Babylon, under Nabopolassar, emerges as a leading force. The transition is not a clean break, it is a rebalancing. What matters is that Babylon seizes the moment to rebuild its image and its reach. Then comes Nebuchadnezzar II. He is the figure who dominates the period, the builder king whose name becomes synonymous with Babylon itself. We should be careful. Later stories amplify his image, and some legends are not verifiable. But the evidence that does exist points to an ambitious program of construction and consolidation. The city becomes a stage. Picture Babylon in this era. The walls are enormous. The processional way is lined with glazed bricks. The Ishtar Gate rises in deep blue with striding lions and dragons. These are not just decorations. They are statements. A city that looks this powerful is trying to make its power feel inevitable. This is the first thread to hold. Neo-Babylon is power as display. It is a form of politics that works through scale and beauty. The city is designed to impress visitors, intimidate rivals, and reassure its own people. Architecture becomes propaganda in stone and brick. But the spectacle is not only aesthetic, it is also administrative. Construction requires labor, taxes, materials, and logistics. The same bureaucracy that fueled earlier empires now fuels building on a massive scale. When you see a wall or a gate, you are seeing thousands of coordinated actions: quarrying, transport, payroll, supervision. The beauty rests on a system. Now consider the economy. Babylon sits at the center of trade routes. Grain flows from the countryside. Luxury goods pass through markets. Temples manage land and labor. Royal projects demand steady supplies. The city's grandeur depends on a stable flow of resources. That stability is not automatic. It must be enforced and managed. We can also see how identity is being curated. The neo-Babylonian kings present themselves as restorers of ancient tradition. They invoke older gods, rebuild temples, and inscribe their names on foundations as if to say, "We are the true heirs of Sumer and Akkad." This is not just nostalgia, it is political legitimacy. Think about that message. After centuries of upheaval, Babylon claims continuity. It says that the past belongs here. That claim is part of the reason the city's myth grows so large. It is not only powerful, it is symbolic. Now pause on the famous question of the Hanging Gardens. Were they in Babylon? Were they elsewhere? The evidence is debated. Some scholars argue for Babylon, others for Assyria, possibly Nineveh. The honest answer is that we cannot be certain. What matters for our story is that the idea of the gardens fits the neo-Babylonian image, a city of wonder, engineered to impress. The second thread is power through ritual. Temples and festivals become central to the city's rhythm. The New Year festival, for example, reinforces the king's role and the city's divine order. These rituals are not only religious, they are political theater. They tell everyone who belongs at the center. Now consider the empire beyond the walls. Babylon controls a broader region, but it is not endless. It governs through a mix of local administration, tribute, and military presence. The system is more focused than Assyria's constant campaigning, but it still requires force. When the king marches, it is a reminder that spectacle is backed by power. This period also intersects with the history of Judah and the exile of elites to Babylon. The sources for this are complex and come from multiple traditions. We should be careful not to simplify. What can be said is that Babylon becomes a place of displacement and memory for many groups. This adds another layer to the city's legacy. Now step into the scribal world. Babylonian scholars preserve and copy older texts. Astronomical observations become more systematic. The priests track the sky, record omens, and build a tradition of careful observation. This is a quieter form of power, knowledge that outlasts kings. It is worth lingering here. The neo-Babylonian period leaves behind records that helped later cultures develop astronomy and mathematics. We should not overstate continuity, but the evidence suggests that careful observation and record-keeping were important. The city's intellectual life is part of its power. Now look at the daily life beneath the monuments. Markets fill with traders, workers haul bricks, priests perform rituals. The grandeur of Babylon is built on ordinary routines. If the routines fail, the spectacle cracks. That is the tension. The extraordinary depends on the ordinary. We can also notice the role of water. Canals and embankments protect and feed the city. The Euphrates is both a lifeline and a risk. Floods and shortages shape policy. The city's builders must manage water with the same care as they manage walls. Let's step into the palace for a moment. There are workshops for artisans, storage rooms for tribute, and offices for scribes. Orders flow down to foremen and reports flow back up. The building of Babylon is not a single project. It is a continuous process of organization. Now consider the outer towns and countryside. Fields, orchards, and villages supply the city. Taxes in grain and labor support the temples and the palace. This rural backbone is easy to forget when we focus on the city's splendor, but without it, the spectacle cannot stand. Think about the processional way again. It is not just a road, it is a ritual corridor. During festivals, the gods' statues move through the city. The king participates in rituals that reassert cosmic order. This is a different kind of control, not only force but ceremony. The people see the order and they are invited to believe in it. Now consider the materials of Babylon. Blue glazed bricks are expensive. They require skilled artisans and controlled production. The very surface of the city reflects state capacity. When a visitor sees shimmering blue walls, they are seeing the city's ability to coordinate labor and resources at scale. The city's symbolism also reaches outward. Diplomatic gifts, tribute, and foreign delegations bring news of Babylon's power back to their own regions. The city's image is exported. In this sense, Babylon does not only rule by force, it rules by reputation. We should also think about land and ownership. Temples and the crown control large estates. Contracts record leases, harvest obligations, and deliveries. The archive shows a world where property is formalized and tracked. That paperwork makes the economy legible, and legibility is a kind of power. Some labor is seasonal, some is permanent. Craft workshops, brick production, and palace projects require continuous workers. The state assigns labor through obligations, and the temples coordinate manpower for ritual and agriculture. This is not a free labor market, it is a managed system. Now imagine a caravan arriving at Babylon's gates. Traders bring metals, timber, stone, and textiles. They pay fees and pass through checkpoints. The city is not only a destination, it is a filter. Whoever controls the gate controls the flow, and that is how Babylon turns geography into revenue. Let's pause on chronology for a moment. The neo-Babylonian period is relatively brief compared to the long span of Mesopotamian history. That is part of the irony. The most famous Babylon is also one of the shortest lived as an empire. This reminds us that cultural memory does not always track political duration. Now consider the city's layout. It is a planned space with districts, gates, and sacred zones. The temples sit in prominent positions. Processional routes tie them together. The city is designed to guide people's movement, and by guiding movement, it guides attention. This is architecture as choreography. The walls themselves are more than defense. They are a statement of scale. They tell visitors and residents that this city is protected, permanent, and worth obeying. The moat and outer defenses create layers, literal thresholds that turn entry into a ritual of submission. Even the brick stamps matter. Bricks are often inscribed with the king's name. This is a quiet form of domination. Every wall becomes a repeated signature. You cannot forget who built the city because his name is everywhere, embedded in the fabric. Now pause on the central temple complex. The Exile and the ziggurat dominate the sacred landscape. The king's legitimacy is tied to these places, and his building projects there are as political as they are religious. By rebuilding the center, he presents himself as the restorer of cosmic order. We can also see Babylon's law and contracts continuing older traditions. Merchants still write agreements, families still record inheritance, temples still manage land. The legal culture of old Babylon does not disappear. It becomes part of the city's everyday machinery. The spectacular city is still sustained by quiet paperwork. Now consider how Babylon is remembered. Later traditions turn the city into a symbol of pride, splendor, and sometimes arrogance. Those memories are shaped by the city's architecture and by the stories told about it. Whether those stories are fair is not the point. The point is that Babylon becomes larger than itself, a metaphor as much as a place. That tells you something about how power works. A city can lose its empire and still win the memory. The neo-Babylonian period is brief, but its image is enormous. That image becomes one of the most enduring in ancient history. So we have a city that is magnificent, administratively capable, and culturally confident. But the system is still fragile. A state that relies on spectacle can be undermined if the resources to sustain it weaken. And a state that relies on a single center can be vulnerable to external shocks. This is where the third thread appears, vulnerability hidden beneath grandeur. The very concentration of power in Babylon means that if the center is captured, the whole system changes quickly. The empire's coherence depends on one city. Now look at the rise of the Persians. Under Cyrus, a new force grows in the east. The Persian expansion is systematic and diplomatic as well as military. Babylon's defenses are strong, but the empire is no longer the only power in the region. The political balance shifts again. When Babylon falls to Cyrus, the transition is surprisingly smooth in some accounts. The city is taken without the catastrophic destruction that ended Nineveh. We should not romanticize this. The reality was still a transfer of power, but the difference in tone is telling. The age of Babylon's dominance ends not in fire but in absorption. And yet the city's image survives. Babylon remains a symbol in later cultures, a place of grandeur, pride, and memory. Its monuments, whether still standing or remembered, outlive its political power. The neo-Babylonian period becomes the most famous version of Babylon, even as its empire was relatively brief. So what is the emotional core of this episode? It is the tension between display and durability. Babylon builds a city that looks eternal, but history is not. The city's beauty is real, but it cannot protect the empire forever. If you step back across our series, the arc is complete. Sumer gave us organization and writing. Akkad gave us empire at scale. Ur-II gave us administrative precision. Old Babylon gave us law and contracts. Assyria gave us imperial machinery. Neo-Babylon gives us spectacle and memory, the city as symbol. And that takes us to the end of our series. 6 episodes, 6 different answers to the same question. How do human societies build order in a world that keeps changing? Mesopotamia's story is not linear. It is layered. Power shifts, but memory stays. The cities fall, but the records remain. That is where we close.